Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Brownsville Matters. I want to welcome Chief Sauceda with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Mine.
And we're, as I've said before on the program, we're just interested in Brownsville and what Brownsville can become. We want to talk about its wonderful past and its challenges, and we want to talk about where it's headed and where we hope it can go. And so, Chief, we want to talk to you about some of those themes here today. But
Yes.
let's begin at the very beginning. You're from Brownsville, and so what part of Brownsville were you raised in?
Actually, yes, I am born and raised here in Brownsville, Texas. I am a product of our local school system, and I actually grew up and was raised in the Southmost area.
Okay. So what was Southmost like then when you were young?
You know, just a smaller version of what it is today, right? It's its own city, it's its own culture, it's its own unique section of our city, and quite interestingly, it's one of the most socioeconomic deprived areas as well. You know, we have so many individuals in that area, right, that depend on so many of the services that we have, within and throughout the community, at a state level, at a federal level. So it's definitely, something that, but we have excellent individuals that have also come out of that area, individuals that have been able to endure the struggles and make something very unique and different. And by unique, I mean, it's like nothing takes away the struggles, right, that we faced as adolescents, as children, and it allows us to be able to give back to the community at that level. It's, one of the themes of my administration has always been to address the most in need, and so there's a lot of work that we have done in that area and through other areas as well of our community at large.
Were the streets paved when you grew up there?
Yes, sir.
They were?
Yes, sir.
But once upon a time, they were not, right? In Southmost, of course, that's probably true of all outlying areas in Brownsville. They were probably caliche and all was common.
I mean, from my recollection, I've always recalled them as being paved. I grew up in a very social, economic deprived environment, and much like so many other individuals did, and it taught us right. It taught us to be able to be grateful, be grateful for the simple things, the simple things in life.
Well, they have some of the best taquerias in the world right
there. Absolutely, yes.
I was seeing recently that, the New York Times wrote an article about the great taquerias in Brownsville.
Several of our local restaurants have been featured, yes.
And Texas Monthly, and I think it was, what is his name? There's Tacos of Texas, a guy who does a TV program, also talked about the extraordinary taquerias of Brownsville.
That's right.
So anyway, you grew up there, and did you want to be a police officer? Were you one of those kids that dreamed of being a police officer, or is that something came later?
That came later. That came in high school. I get asked that a million times.
I'm sure you do.
And it was one day, it was just a calling. I woke up to it. It says, hey, I know exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I went ahead and I prepared myself for the role, not for my current role. That came later as well.
Right. Yeah.
But initially, yes, so that I could, join the ranks, if you would, of a police organization, because it was just a calling. It really was. I just literally woke up one day, when I was a junior in high school, and says, I know exactly what I want to do.
Well, was there some catalyst to that? You saw a movie, you saw something that made you say, I admire that work?
Much like anyone, especially my generation, growing up watching, Cops and Robbers and, Chips and Hawaii Five-0 and everything else,
Yeah.
I can't say that it was one thing, because I'd been watching, that throughout my life. It was just a calling. I woke up one day. I mean, I hadn't been intrigued to the level of saying, hey, I want to do that someday or whatever. Right. It was just, miraculously, I woke up one morning and I said, I know exactly what I want to do.
And you've been involved in all kinds of police work. You've been in the motorcycle division, right? How long did you do that?
16 years. I baked my head.
16 years?
16 years.
Wow. You're lucky to be alive. You know what they call motorcycles? Donor cycles.
Absolutely.
Do you have some close calls?
No, I actually had some calls. I
I'm
totaled a
sure.
motorcycle. I was out for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yes.
What happened?
I was actually T-boned at an intersection.
On a motorcycle?
On a motorcycle.
Someone hit you from the side?
Yes.
And you survived?
Yeah, I did.
What were your
I broke my
injuries?
clavicle. Yeah, broke my clavicle. Had several other, obviously and evidently that was the most serious of it.
Sure,
But
yeah.
bruising and
Yeah.
everything else. So
But you went back to it?
I went back to it.
You got back on that horse.
Absolutely.
So how is it more interesting or advantageous to be on a motorcycle as a policeman as opposed to a patrol car?
So there's uniqueness, and that's how come it becomes a specialty. So there's a definite need with the flow, with the traffic need, the engineered design of our intersections, of our streets, of how it is that our traffic flow works. We're experiencing though, right, mass growth, if you will. Outgrowing of our arteries, our main arteries, our traffic signals and things of that sort. It's interesting because we're just discussing this issue. We get called about, hey, the light this, the light that. And back in the old days, we just used to throw numbers at it. What was numbers? People, right?
Yeah.
But you can't rely on that.
Yeah.
You have to be systematic about the resolution, about what it is that you get to do long-term, systematically. And so
you're data-driven.
Absolutely. It's about traffic study. It's about studying that data, finding your peaks, finding, and then being able to optimize the use of your day-to-day resources by making use of that data.
So what concerns you about the growth of Brownsville in the next, let's say, 10 years? What areas are you focusing on? Say, we got to solve this. Anything that's a hot spot, so to speak, traffic-wise or anyway?
So traffic-wise, since we are data-driven, we come to find out that Mondays are crash days in Brownsville.
Mondays?
We have our highest volume of crashes on
Wow.
a Monday. For whatever good reason.
No particular reason.
No
People
particular
hung over
reason.
from the weekend. I mean, what?
Getting back into the routine of the week or whatever the case may be, and then Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays are some of our busier days for call volume, right? So we have calls that come in through a regular landline, and then we have our 911 calls. So right now we're averaging about 4,000 calls from a Thursday through Saturday.
4,000?
4,000.
My God.
4,000 calls.
Well, something a lot of people I think don't realize is that here in the Valley, a lot of people think of McAllen as the big city.
Right.
But Brownsville's the big city.
Right. Geographically, yes.
Geographically and population-wise.
Yes, sir.
We're the big city.
Right.
And Brownsville has, I think, 150 square miles. Is that right?
That is correct.
That you must police.
Yes.
350 miles of roads. How do you do that?
Strategically.
Are you understaffed? Do you need more people?
Well, I mean, that would be common for anybody in my position
Sure.
to say, right? But,
Sure.
that's why you're data-driven. That's why you have to rely on your analysis and your day-to-day, algorithms and everything else, right?
Right.
You have to depend on technology and its sophisticated algorithms and get the positive results, right? Of course, at the end of the day, you have to know what to use that data for and how it is that you intend to use it, and then put it into practice. But anyhow, growth, we're at a cusp of unprecedented growth within our region, within our city. So interesting, when it comes to population, right? 180, 190,000.
Yep.
But we have transitory that is estimated to take us at over 300,000. That's on any given day, Monday through Friday.
Wow.
So, it's very interesting. At the end of the day, we're responsible for all that. We're here to guarantee
The safety for all of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's what I often think about. It's one thing to be policing a city that's 185,000 people, and then you got the transitory, but it's on the border too, which adds a whole nother. How does that affect you, being on the border? I mean, you get some help because you have the feds, and now the governor's sent help down to this region, but how does it affect you? Does that in any way confuse your mission to have all these extra people?
So, very interesting. because there is uniqueness to a border town.
Sure.
There are areas in this nation and individuals that don't know other than from a photo or an internet photo or article, what a Border Patrol truck looks like, or a customs vehicle looks like, or any of the other federal agencies, or that sees such a number of state units in the area, right? Well, the uniqueness of a border city allows us to be able to see that. It's showcased to our city on any given day. We know all those vehicles are common to us. So we have every federal agency represented within our community. We have a lot of state resources within our area as well. So how does it actually complements us, right? But it comes to relationships. We have to have that working relationship. We need to be able to communicate, because at the end of the day, we all have one common mission. It may be diverse, or it may change some, if you would, their methodology of operation. But at the end of the day, we all have a common mission: is public safety and the safety of our nation.
What is in your jurisdiction that is not, say, in the Border Patrol jurisdiction? Is there any division there where this is our responsibility and that's theirs?
So, going back to what I just said without contradicting it, it's like, yes, they have their focus mission, right, which is different from ours.
Right.
They're at a national level, but they're there also as part of their collaboration. It's part of their mission, if you would, or their objective is to be supportive, just like the state as well is, to be supportive of your local agencies, local, state, and government agencies.
Well, I want to talk about Uvalde just a minute, because we're talking about division of responsibility. And one of the things that surprised me in that tragedy was, absolutely shocked when I heard that it was the responsibility of the school district police chief to handle that emergency, that he was the on-site commander of that tragedy, that event. And I was shocked. I said I thought it would go to the city police immediately for something of that magnitude. And later I heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I heard that he himself said, I didn't know I was in charge. I didn't know I had command. So can you speak to that? What was the issue? Would it have gone normally to the police chief of Uvalde? Or is it the same here? Is the police chief of Brownsville ISD the one who takes command on campus emergencies?
So the federal government has actually established a matrix, if you would.
Okay.
Right? And each one of us has to be trained in the method, right? Through ISO 100 and 700 federal classes, right? That designates incident commandership.
Okay.
So that we can avoid incidents like this. It's sad, sad beyond belief, sad beyond rationale. What happened there. We're going to learn so much from it.
Yeah.
We already did.
Yes.
There's going to be policy implications.
No
Those will
doubt.
be oncoming. Absolutely. The school year, right? There's a sort of a pause right now because school's out of session.
Yeah, it's helpful, actually.
Absolutely. But here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, everything will go back to that setting. There's going to be so much hyperactivity.
Sure.
Everything from what we tell our kids to do, what we don't tell them. There's a doubt. There's a doubt right now, right? In law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
Are we ready? Are we prepared? Is our local, state, federal, school district, police capable, right?
Well, who's making the plan for Brownsville? What are we doing that's different and new?
So, luckily, we're not playing catch-up to anything. It's something that we have always, taken on that big brother role. We're not inviting any challenge. As a matter of fact, we never want to face such an incident, But we always, it is incumbent of us to remain ready, to remain trained, and to have the best of equipment available, right? I mean, everybody has resource and budget constraints and everything else, but you have to prioritize, right? I spoke earlier about relationships, right? We work very well with our state, federal, and local and county agencies within our organization. We have MOUs that were already in place, not as a result of, you know. So we've always been able to remain at a ready. We've always trained and continued our training. So I'm very confident that we as an agency and as a region would be able to absolutely to respond to such a critical incident.
Well, just one very matter-of-fact question. Were they wrong to wait so long? Should they have gone in, the police there locally? Do you think they should have gone in?
So in an active shooter scenario, in an active shooter incident, we're trained to chase the sound of bullets. We're trained to distract, identify, and then eliminate, you know, the threat.
Yeah. It was just like a perfect storm of bad decisions. They couldn't decide, you know, what needed to be done, in what order. I don't want to be too brutal because I know that in the circumstance, in the moment, it's always complicated, far more complicated than it is with hindsight. But most of the people in the brotherhood of police have been very critical of the slow response. And so here in Brownsville, if we had an incident like that, would you be taking command, or some part of your staff take command of that operation, or does it remain with the school district police to do it?
So we actually, like I said, we have a very strong working relationship with every one of our law enforcement partners within our community. We have standing MOUs. We have areas of responsibilities that we have pre-designated.
Okay.
So, like I said, I would speculate with a certain degree of assertiveness that our response would be quite different.
Would be quite different. Okay. Are they going to put metal detectors in the schools, harden them the way they've been talking nationally? Any plan for that locally?
You know, when it comes to that, there's so much talk of what's to come and what's not. Like I said, a lot of it I think will be dictated by policy implications at a state and federal level.
Okay.
So my speculation would be that that's still to be seen.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to other things. Let me give you a wish list. If you could have some sudden influx of money for your department, you know, like we're going to boost your budget by $50 million or something. What's your dream? You've only been on the job 3 years, but no doubt you've thought about it a lot. If we could have this, we could make a big difference. What is on that list in your mind?
So actually the vision that we came to within you know, our administration, you know, since 2019, we've done nothing but modernize our organization. You know, everything from the implementation of a different method, which was data-driven, you know, a proven method. I mean, that wasn't my method, our method. That was a proven method that we adopted and that we should have arguably been working for so many years. Technology. We waste so much time, so much resource time, and a waste of resources has an impact on your budgets as well, right? So we had an issue with optimizing the use of our day-to-day resources, right? Strategically focusing our resources, if you would, and optimizing their use. Because so much was invested in man hours, where there's technology out there that, yes, it comes at a cost, you know, but, you know, from a long-term perspective, the savings are there, you know, by implementing but understanding your technology as well. You know, there's so many things out there. I mean, you can get hit by vendors every single day.
Oh, I bet you can.
Trying to sell you an update, trying to sell you, you know, the same thing that somebody else is trying to sell you. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to vet. You need to be able to. The technology has to parallel your objective, your goals, your mission, your vision. You know, so.
So what do you think of like red light cameras, things like that?
Red light cameras, traffic cameras?
Traffic cameras,
Traffic cameras. I mean, there's an issue with that because then you have to identify your driver as well.
Yeah.
right? So I mean that it's been used in our community. It's been used in our adjoining communities, and they've been since done away with.
Yeah, Harlingen used to have them,
Right. Yes.
and then I saw a study that they did that said that caused more accidents because
Right.
people worked so hard to stop at the last minute and got rear-ended by the guy behind them. So
Yeah. So getting back to your question, right? It'd be awesome if we could just implement all the technology, implement all of our methods, implement everything that we envision, right?
But
for our
what
organization.
technology specifically? You're talking in a general sense. Can you give me a system that you'd like to put in place?
So we're working towards all of that. We're working through the acquisition. We have made such gains in the last 3.5 years. We've been strategic. We've taken care of our budgets. There's no wasteful spending. So everything that we've been able to do, we've been strategic, right? And how it is that we want to implement, how it is that we want to acquire. But for instance, everyone's into real-time policing,
Right.
so the ability for us to be able to have a very robust digital ecosystem that we have ready used for, not only for an investigative perspective, but imagine us looking for a subject that just did something a block away. We put it into a sophisticated, technology, and we get a notification that they just crossed an intersection on the other side of town. Things of that sort. Things of that sort. That the technology is out there. It's just a matter of us being able to acquire it and then make best use of it.
Yeah, I heard an FBI agent say that. He said they used to dream of a good way to track criminals, and he said, and then they started carrying cell phones, and it was a dream come true.
Absolutely.
Now, you dreamed of being a police officer early on,
Yes, sir.
and as police chief, what would you say to a young person who's high school age, like you were, who wants to be a police officer? What can they do at that age to prepare to develop the skills and the character necessary to be the kind of person you would want to hire? What makes for a good police officer, good recruit?
You have to have a servant heart. You have to be so willing to work for your community. The community doesn't work for you, much like my employees don't work for me. I work for them. You have to have that selfless servant philosophy that is indoctrinated into you, whether you were raised that way, whether you acquired it, whether it was just naturally a part of you. You need to be able to be of good, sound, moral character, ethical, loyal, and be dependable, and so those are all characteristics that can be worked on, that can be made better, and improved. And so, and of course, keep a clean record,
Right.
and stay out of trouble,
Yeah.
but most definitely. And then, of course, we are an industry that the industry in and of itself will change you. There's no doubt. You will be a different individual if you walk out of here 20 years later.
Yeah.
No doubt in that.
How are you different from what you were?
You learn so much, right? We work with the most imperfect of sciences, right? We don't know what the human element is planning next, how they're going to react, what they're going to do, what they're up to, and things of that sort. So there's no perfection in our science, right? So yet we need to be able to work in that environment. So you learn so much. You learn that, maybe every other word is a lie, and things of that sort. So you need to be able to decipher truth from lie, fact from non-fact. And at the end of the day, right, we're not in a business where we can be driven by gossip, by something that we can't otherwise authenticate. We have to be fact and evidence driven.
What's the best book that you've read on police work? Not necessarily what you do in managing police, not like a management work, but just a good work about the life of police or life of crime. It's a good book that you've enjoyed. Could be a novel, could be nonfiction work on history of serial killers, anything.
Gosh, there's just so many great books out there, right? And not all of them have to be within the industry, right?
Right,
There's
right.
so much readings,
Sure.
on servant leadership, on how it is that we can best serve, our community, and what it takes to be a righteous leader, what it takes to be a great leader, some of the books that I've been fascinated with, are things like It's Your Ship, and things of that sort, to where it shows you, right, how it is that you're there to work with your team, you're there to work for your people,
Right.
and you're there to grow with them, and it's incumbent of us as leaders to be able to grow our personnel, grow our professional values, and at the end of the day, render the highest level of professional service to our community.
Everybody has, I'm sure you do a lot of speaking in schools from time to time, right?
Yes, sir.
I would assume.
Yes.
And so do you have kind of some principles that you lay down for, rules to live by, some dichos that you use for these kids or for your own kids, things
Right.
you say over and over? What are your guiding principles?
I mean, hard work, right? Hard work pays off. Don't give up. Look at life from a half full perspective, not an empty perspective. It's all a matter of choice. At some point, any and all is a matter of choice. Something, you follow it, you follow that issue, you follow that problem, you follow that change in you. It all comes down to a decision that you once made. It's the same decision that you could make to change your perspective.
That's very true.
It is.
At some point, people chose to do the good thing, or they chose to break the law,
Right.
to go the bad route,
Absolutely.
Now, as a traffic officer for many years, no doubt you've been asked this, best excuses.
Oh, God.
I had to go to the bathroom.
that was probably top five.
Top five, really?
Top five. Everything from, my wife is pregnant.
Oh.
She's got a craving for this or craving for that.
Oh, I like
We're
that.
about to close. Yeah, absolutely.
I have to go get a raspa for her.
Barbacoa on a
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Is that good? Will that work?
Never worked for me.
Never
But
worked. I had a really strange one once in my own experience, and I think it only worked because it was true. Is that there's a DPS guy stopped me. I was in college, and I was driving back to college, and my mother had given me a chair to take back, a really nice chair from my dorm, and it barely fit in the back seat, and I couldn't get the seat all the way back. I'm 6'5", I was kind of crammed in. I had to push the seat up, and so I was driving up, and my foot, I kept, kind of going too fast because I was crowded. And I explained that to the police officer, and he looked at me, he looked at the situation, and he said, "Yeah, that's probably true." I wasn't like I was doing a 90 or whatever; it's like 10 over. But so he helped me rearrange the chair so I could adjust it. But I think it only worked because it was true.
yes, it was true.
But out of all the work that you've done, let's suppose that you said, "Okay, I'm done with being police chief, so I'm going to go back to doing what I most love in all the police work." Would you go back to being a motorcycle cop, or would you go into investigative work? Do you like the detective part? What out of all the work have you enjoyed? Or it's all good?
It's all good, I would have to say. I've enjoyed every aspect, every phase of my career. I'll walk away a happy man. I truly believe, that not only did I get to experience every aspect of my organization, but at the end, I left it a better place than I ever found it.
The thing that surprises me when I drive around Brownsville is how far the city limits are out.
Absolutely.
Now. How far north do we go?
All the way up to Sam Houston on the highway.
All the way up to Sam Houston?
Yes, sir.
Well, isn't San Benito there?
On the highway.
But on the
that's our
highway.
Responsibility, yes, sir.
And then all the way out Military Highway.
Calabos.
Then,
All the way up to Calabos.
and then to the east?
To the east, it gets a little tricky because we actually have areas of responsibility real close to Port Isabel city limits.
And SpaceX?
No, we actually
That's
don't
county.
go that far down.
That's county.
Yes, sir.
And what about the closing of that road? Because that's a county issue, not your issue.
Right.
But does it affect you in any way, the SpaceX out there?
No, sir.
The closing or whatever? And what are the challenges within Brownsville proper, since you were a traffic officer, what are the areas? Because there's always areas, in any city where you say, we have a lot of wrecks right here,
Right.
this intersection. So what intersections are problematic in terms of accidents?
So our biggest traffic flow areas, right? Your Alton and any intersection in Alton, your Morrison Road, your Paredes Road and several of its arteries, Boca Chica, Four Corners, Southmost International, all of our main arteries.
They just repaired Boca Chica here.
Yes, sir.
And is that helpful? That's been fixed, so to speak. They got an extra lane on
Right.
each side.
Right. So, I mean, is it different? It's aesthetically different.
Yeah.
It's of course
Looks better, yes.
It avoids those traffics. Where you're actually turning from a left, lane into a private drive. Along the boulevard. But it's had its advantages, if you would.
As a kid, thinking back to when you were a child here in Southmost, and knowing what Brownsville was at the time, what has surprised you most in your lifetime as to what Brownsville has become? What's here that you say, wow, I would have never thought that we would have this?
SpaceX.
Oh, well, that's true. Yes, SpaceX is incredible.
The growth, everything that's come through the port. I mean, there's so many things that we actually don't know the data behind, but I mean, our port, just so many things, so much traffic, commercial traffic that comes through our area, some of the cargoes that go through our area, illicit and proper, but absolutely, I mean, I've never seen this level of growth. We are at a cusp of so much growth and so much unprecedented growth, But like I said, who would have ever thought that SpaceX would be here someday?
Yeah, that is one of the big surprises for
Yes,
sure.
sir.
And the university also has
Absolutely.
grown enormously in that time
Enormously.
with opportunities that didn't
Yes.
exist. In fact,
Our
when
school
you
systems,
yeah,
our school systems, we have so many districts within our city now.
do you know about the new city they're building at the edge of the limits of Brownsville, Madeira, I think is the name of it?
Yes, sir.
Is that going to be in Brownsville?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And it's going to be like 1,000 homes, or do you know?
I believe you're about right.
About right,
Yes.
yes. But that'll fall into your jurisdiction
Yes,
of
sir.
policing there as well.
Yes, sir.
And then we have, I was thinking also when I first came here in 1988, and then there was, I think there was only one McDonald's, and there wasn't much in the way of fast food. No
That's right.
national businesses here, no Home Depot. After you got past Sunrise Mall, it was all farm to market roads
Yes.
out there. If you go into to Harlingen, you drive through 3 or 4 red lights out there
right.
on the way to Harlingen. And so the explosion between here and I told my son, I said, probably in another 20 years, it's going to be all city, between Brownsville and San Benito. It'll just be all city, all the way to McAllen, it is practically from Harlingen now
Absolutely.
to McAllen that way. So keeping that in mind, what do you envision Brownsville looking like in, let's say, 20 years? What do you think will be the edge of the city? Will we just be kind of like Dallas-Fort Worth all merged, or what are your thoughts?
Perhaps the merging. We can't grow our boundaries any further as it is.
Oh, we can't? You're growing all the way?
Yes.
Of course, cities always expand along the expressways to get the tax, to get the rich tax property. But you can't grow anymore on Military Highway or whatever. You're kind of locked in now.
The adjoining municipalities in our area that surround us. But anyhow, I mean, we keep on taking on so much more residential areas. Commercial areas are growing within our city. Industry at some point is going to continue its growth. So, I mean, I believe that 20 years from now, it'll be unimaginable. You and I can't imagine what it'll look like, 20 years from now.
New bridges? Are any new bridges planned along here?
There's always been that talk, just like there's always been talk about another causeway and things of that sort. I don't know. We'll see, right?
Well, thank you so much for joining us
Absolutely.
today.
Pleasure's
I've learned a
mine, sir.
lot from your perspectives.